Hey everyone, so I wanted to continue on with more Wii U emulation, so I decided in today's video I'm going to be showing you all how to add emulators to your virtual Wii, which honestly compared to Retroarch you kind of get more of a variety of usages like PlayStation 1 and GameCube and whatnot, so I thought it'd be cool to kind of show you guys how to set all these up today. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to leave a link for everything that I'm using today in the description below. And the first link we're going to go on is a list of homebrew emulators. What I'm going to do first is select all the emulators that I want, then I'm going to download them, and then I'll show you how to set them up. So let's just go through the list here. To start, we have the Nintendo Entertainment System, and that's FCE Ultra. I'm just going to open a new tab for all the ones that I want, and then I'm going to go through and download them all in one shot. This one is Genesis Mega Drive Sega Master System, so Genesis Plus, open a new tab. I'll also take Neo Geo CD. I'm going to skip PlayStation 1 for right now because there is a separate site that we're going to go to for that. But continuing on, we have the Super Nintendo, SNES 9GX. There's an Atari 2600 here, but I think Wii 2600 down here works a lot better for Atari 2600. Now, I'm not going to go through every single Atari like the 7800 because they're pretty much all set up the same way, so I'm just going to stick with this one. Next up, we have the Nintendo 64, that's WiiSXRX. What's next? Let's see. Guess we're going to go over into handhelds. Which for this, I'm just going to grab the VBA Visual Boy Advance because it has Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance on it. So right click, open a new tab. And lastly, we're going to do SDL MAME Wii. This is our MAME emulator. I'm just going to right click, open a new tab. And now we're just going to go through and start downloading everything. So first up, we have MAME Wii. I'm just going to hit download right here. And we're going to select the version 1.0 zip. Now we can close out of this tab, and we're just going to do this with all the rest too. So we have FCE Ultra, this is our NES emulator. Going to hit download. And we're going to take the 3.5.1 zip. Next up we have Genesis Plus, this is our Sega emulator. Go to download. And this one's going to be the Gen Plus GX 1.7.5. And next, we have Neo CD. We're just going to hit download. And we're going to take the Neo CD Wii 0.5 zip. Next, we have the Super Nintendo SNES 9GX. SNES 9X GX. Sorry about that. Go to download. And this is going to be the 4.5.2 zip. Next up, the Wii 2600. This is our Atari. We're going to hit download. Wii 64. This is our Nintendo 64 emulator. Hit download. And we're going to select this top one here, Wii 64 1.3. Next up, Visual Boy Advance. This is our Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance emulator. Download. Version 2.4.5. And now we have our next site that we were talking about earlier. This is the WiiSXRX emulator, and it's a PlayStation 1 emulator. We're going to go down and select WiiSXRX version 2.5. It's basically a continuation of WiiSXR and WiiSX, I believe. Actually, I might even say it somewhere down here. But anyways, continuing on, we have the compatibility list that also goes with the PlayStation 1 emulator. Now, this will tell you what games work and what games don't. Not every game does, unfortunately, but there are detailed notes on what's going on with most of these games. So it's kind of hit or miss, but, you know, the green ones obviously work okay. And but yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Next up, we have Nintendont. Now, this is our last one here, and all we're going to do is go to code, and download zip. This is what's going to help us play our GameCube games. And I think that's it for the downloads. So now let's head over to the desktop and we'll continue on. Alright, so now that we're on the desktop, you can see here I have my download folder open, which has all of our emulators here. And I also have the SD card plugged in. So going back over here, we're going to start off the top, which is Nintendont. Again, this is our GameCube emulator. I'm just going to open this up. Open up the master folder. And we're going to drag Nintendont here into the apps folder. Then we're going to open it up, go into Nintendont, and we want to grab the loader from this other folder here. Open this up and grab this loader.dol. And we're just going to drag this in here. And we're also going to rename it boot.dol. Next up, when you want games to work for this, you have to create a folder on the root of your SD and just name it games. Now from here, you can see I picked out all my ROMs and ISOs here that I'm going to be using here today. I'm just going to hit games, and I'm going to drag my Zelda file right into this. So let's just give this a second to transfer, and we'll continue on. Now that that's all done, I just wanted to explain a little more about this. Now, the game of your choice, whatever you decide to put in here, you have to make sure that it's unzipped, and you can name it pretty much whatever you want, but inside, whatever your ISO file may be, you have to rename it game.iso. It has to be inside of a subfolder, like for me it's Zelda. Inside of that, game.iso, and it has to be the game, you know, of your choice or whatever you're trying to play there. That's the only way you're going to get your games to work, so just make sure you do that. Now, backing up, let's hop out of this. And we're going to do WiiSXRX. This is our PlayStation 1 emulator. We're all set with GameCube. Let's just open this up. And this one's actually pretty simple. We're just going to highlight both of these, and we're going to throw it right onto the SD. Now we have our WiiSXRX folder here on the root. Inside, this is where you're going to place your BIOS and your ISOs. So for me, I have my BIOS right here. I'm just going to drag that right into there. And my ISO, I have Crash Bandicoot right here. And we're just going to give this a second to transfer as well. Alright, once again, I just want to explain a little bit more about the ISOs. So once you open it up, you have to have your base folder unzipped. For me, it's Crash Bandicoot. Inside of that folder, you need your .bin and .q file, and that's it to get that running. Nothing will work, though, unless you have your BIOS in your BIOS folder, so keep that in mind. Let's move on. Next up, we have Visual Boy Advance. This is our Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance emulator. Once again, we're just going to highlight everything, drag it right on. Now, this is VBag here. You have your ROMs. This is where you're going to place all of your Game Boy ROMs. So, let's see, where did I put mine? I have Tetris right here. And that one's easy peasy and done pretty quick. Alright, next up we have the WiiSXRX. We're going to open this up. We're going to open up the apps folder. And we're going to drag this WiiSXRX folder here into our apps folder on the SD card. Then we're just going to go back a page. And we also have another WiiSXRX folder. This one's going to go on the root of our SD. So you can see here I have WiiSXRX. And then we're just going to make a new folder and call it ROMs. And this is where we're going to place our extracted ROMs. These cannot be zipped. And I'm going to be using Waluigi's Taco Stand since I, already made a video on it. Next up, let's go with Wii 2600s. This is our Atari emulator. Open that up. Once again, we're highlighting both files, dragging it right on there. And then we're going to go to the Wii 2600 folder. Inside, you'll have a ROM folder. And this is where your Atari 2600 ROMs will go. And for me, I'm going with Pitfall. You can leave these in a zip format, so that's fine. Next up, we have our SNES emulator. So we're going to open this up. Once again, highlight everything and drag it in. Drag it onto the root of your SD. And inside your SNES 9X GX folder, you'll have your ROMs. And once again, this is where your ROMs will go. So for me, I went with Wild Guns. We'll leave this in a zipped format. And we're done with that one. Next up we have Neo CD. Now this is a fun one. We're going to open this up and drag both of these onto the root of the SD. Now to get Neo CD to work, you need to make a folder on the root of your SD and just call it BIOS. I'd recommend putting it in caps. I don't know if that's an issue, but better safe than sorry. And you're just going to drag your Neo CD BIOS right in there. Next up, we have the games folder, which will be fun if I can. Oh, right here, Neo CD. And it says it right here. Put games folder here. So new folder, games. And this is where we're going to put Metal Slug. Now for this has to be unzipped if you have it zipped. And let's just give this a second to transfer. Okay, now inside of our folder, you're going to notice that we have all of these WAV files. We have to change these all to MP3. I'm sure why. It messes with the sound functions in the games, and it's kind of a pain, but that's kind of what you have to do for Neo CD. So we're just going to delete WAV and do MP3, and we're going to do this for all of them here. So just give me 1 second. Okay, now that I have all that done, we're going to create a new folder in here, and we're just going to label it MP3. And we're going to drag all of these MP3 files we just made right into that folder. Kind of cleans things up real nice. Then we're going to right click Metal Slug and hit extract here. This is what's going to give us all the files that actually make this game playable inside of the emulator. And that's pretty much it for Neo CD. Next up we have Gen Plus. This is our Sega emulator. All we're going to do is drag the apps folder onto the root of our SD. And for this one, you have to create your own folder on the root. I'm just going to call it Sega Games. And inside, you can make a ROM folder, but this is technically your base folder anyways. So I guess I'm just going to drag the Michael Jackson's Moonwalker right in there. And that's pretty much it for Sega. Next up, we have FCE Ultra. This is our NES emulator. We're going to drag both of these folders here and drag them right on the root. And you can see we have the FCE UGX folder here with a ROMs folder inside. This is where our NES files are going to go, and I have Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for that. And let's head back to the next one. And lastly, I guess we have MAME. So let's open this up, drag both of these folders onto the root of your SD. Then in your MAME folder, you already have a ROMs folder. And for this one, we're going to go with Popeye. All right, so we're all done with the PC side of things, so let's head over to the Wii U and we'll start testing all this out. But don't leave yet, because we do have to go over some controller functionalities and how to set up some of these emulators. So let's just skip on over to that. All right, now that we're here, first things first, we need to talk about some basic functionality of some of these emulators. So most of what you're going to be using, like the NES or the Super Nintendo, should work fine using just the Wiimote. But if you decide you want to use a controller, what I've found works for this is the Mayflash GameCube adapter. Basically, this end plugs into your Wiimote, which, by the way, can't be the Motion Plus controller. It has to be just a standard Wiimote. But anyways, it plugs into the back of the controller and makes the GameCube controller, I guess, kind of think it's the Wiimote, and that's how it's able to access certain emulators like PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64, which you will need a controller to use those. So let's just jump into it, and you guys will get a better feel for what I'm talking about. And you can see here, this is all the emulators that we just put in. So let's start off. Well, actually, you know what? What I'm going to do is cover the emulators that I think people are going to run into the most trouble with, as well as ones that require some configuration to get running. So I know these should all work fine. Let's see. I guess we'll start with Nintendont. So let's go to load. Now, if you did everything in the beginning correctly, this is going to check the SD card for our game that we put in. So it's just going to check, and then it'll let you know what it finds. But it should give us an option for USB or SD. So, yep, there it is. So let's select SD. And right here we have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Now, we don't want to click this just yet. We want to go check out some settings first. So let's hit the B button. And I already changed these before, so if you don't have mem card emulation turned on, you're going to want to turn that on. This is what's going to give you the ability to save. And you can also just go through a couple of these, but that's the most important one, is the mem card emulation. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now let's go ahead and hit the A button, and this is going to load our game up. And you can see here it's working fine. I have my GameCube controller plugged in, so I'm playing with this. But yeah, everything seems to be working fine. I don't want to do too much gameplay of everything because then this video will be really long. So I just want to show you guys that it boots up, and then I'll move on to the next one, as well as show you the exit feature, how to go back to homebrew from this. So just give it a second. I just want to see that classic startup. There it is. Good enough for me. So anyways, if you want to return back to the homebrew menu, just hold the start button on your controller, and the screen will kind of go wide here for a second, and then it'll send us back. Now, next up, I think people will also have a problem with the WiiSXRX. This is the PlayStation 1 emulator, so let's do this next. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to our settings, and we're going to change the select BIOS to SD. If you have your BIOS on your SD card, it's just going to auto select from there. And I'm also going to do boot through BIOS as yes. Now from here, let's just go over to, that was very fast, input, and we're going to keep this as standard. And honestly, I think that's pretty much it. So after that's done, that should be pretty much it for these settings. So let's press B. We're going to load our ISO, load from SD. We have Crash Bandicoot. And now you're going to see you have your .bin and .q file. You're going to select the .bin. And then we're going to hit play game. Now, if you don't set it up the way that I just showed you, chances are if you're using a controller, it's just not going to work. So let's give this a second here because you can't really skip through these. All right, you can see here that I'm able to move at least, and we're clocking in at 59 frames per second, so not too bad. Let's just go ahead and start this up. But yeah, anyways, this is actually running pretty good. It doesn't look too bad. Volume sounds good. Oh, I toasted them. But yeah, this seems to be going good with the way that I have it. So if we want to back out of this, once again, we're just going to hold the start button. This should take us to the menu. And now we can quit. And the last one I will show you guys is the Sega Genesis emulator. And that's just because I know for a fact you have to set up the controller for that one. So let's go to Sega Genesis Plus. Load that up. Press A to continue, A to continue. We're gonna go to options, controls, and we're gonna start with gamepad 2 here. Oops, that was an accident. We're gonna start with player 2 here, and we're just gonna turn the input device off. And for player 1, we're going to select the pad type as, you can select this as pretty much anything that you want, but I'm going to do the use 3 button pad here in the corner. You can't see it, but it's directly behind me. There's little options that say use 3 button pad, use 6 button pad, or 2 button pad. But anyways, I'm going to select the 3 button pad, and the input device, it's already selected. You can see that that's the controller that plugs into the Wiimote, but you have the option of using the Wiimote itself or this. But if that's not selected and you're using the controller, this will need to be used for that. And lastly, you can configure your keys. So press A. It'll say press any key for the A button, the B button, the C button, which I'm setting right now, and your start button. And now, let's just start up a game. So let's go to load game. Let's just go to the Mega Drive, and we're going to look for our Sega games folder that we made earlier. And inside I have Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. So let's just start this up, see a little bit of controller movement, and then we'll move on. And everything seems to be going good so far. But anyways, Get away from me, peasant! Ah! Shit! Dude, he goes flying. But, yeah, you can see here that the game's working fine. So once again, if you want to head back, just hold the start button. And then go to exit and return to loader. And this will take us back here. Now, I believe the N64 controller will work natively on the N64, so I don't think I'm going to cover that for you guys. I know I put Waluigi's taco stand in here, but I don't want the video to be too long. But yeah, I'm going to start wrapping it up here, and leave a comment down below if you run into any issues. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can, and feel free to join the Discord. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.